So we're at Kunsthalle Zürich and in the midst of preparing, installing the new exhibition by American artist Liz Larner. And what you see is not at all the finished show, it's a brand new piece. We don't want to say too much now, because my first question would be to Liz, who's sitting next to me, and thanks for doing this. Do you remember how it all started?
Yes, well, we'd known each other. I think that you put me in a show in the early 90s that you curated. So we'd known each other and had a few different times. And then you called me one day and out of the blue and asked if I would be interested. And I was, I said yes. And yeah, and then did you come to visit after that?
I think, yeah, I traveled to Los Angeles and we started discussion about, so I saw these 30 years of work, 35 years of work now, and I tried to figure out how can I show to the audience all the different things you did, because you developed so many different sculptures, and yet at the same time, how can we do a new piece? And I think you came up with this idea here that is to be absolutely to be seen because it's super spectacular. I think that's somehow how it started.
Yeah, and so then it was supposed to be in 2020, June, and that didn't happen.
We postponed it to 21, then postponed it to 22, which actually gave us also a bit the occasion on my side, but also on your side, as you told me, to readjust. I think you then said on the top floor, Daniel, you do what you want. I do this new piece down here, and the more historical part, you choose, you figure out what you want to do, which is a rare thing, that an artist just trusts you like this. And so in my case, I also started always in conversation with you to edit. So there are a few early pieces. There's also a piece from 2003, I think, the Big X. And even then, a very new piece from 21. What is it called? You might have to live like a refugee. Yeah, you might have to live like a refugee from 21. Maybe you could say something about this very new landscape or work.
Or seascape or
skyscape. Or
yeah. So, well, I had been wondering about refuse plastic or plastic that was supposed to be recyclable, but wasn't really being recycled because China had stopped accepting our recyclables, and in the States we really didn't have the means to do it. So I decided I would just save what was my family's recycling, and very rapidly it got really big, and it was surprising how big it got, and educational to say the least. So I realized I wanted to do something with it, but I didn't know what. And then I got this opportunity to do a large installation in this wonderful large room. So that's when I came up with the idea to do a kind of seascape and have, these are called meerschaum drifts. And so it's kind of taking the form of sea foam, but constructing it with all refuse plastic.
And so you assembled all of this yourself with your assistant?
Yeah, I had an assistant, Rachel Dean, helped. She was through the whole thing, and then she quit. She'd had enough. It was quite. It was not an easy thing to make,
yeah.
But it wasn't a bad ending. I'm just saying, I think she'd had it with the plastic, and she wanted to move on to something else in her life. And that's the thing; it's not an easy material to have around you a lot. But
But it's everywhere.
But it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing. It's really about scale, the effect. That's a sculptural concept, scale, and this is about the scale of this material that we don't really see in scale, except it's very degraded, and we don't want to look at it. So
yeah.
I thought it was an interesting thing to try to do that with.
And then here it's basically maybe 2 months of a family plastic waste?
No, I think
more?
It's more. Yeah, it's more. I don't know exactly how much because I have a lot of it left at the studio. We really picked out the prize pieces, and I did get some. I did get a bale that I barely used any of, but. Then there's another element of that that's not in this shot, that is the asteroids. So the asteroids are made of ceramic, and they will populate this kind of impossible landscape, seascape, in the end, when hopefully people come to see it.
And then being them asteroids, so that's before they would come to Earth, if they even do come to Earth. So it's a contradiction, because it's a seascape, and it's a skyscape, and it's made out of clay from the earth, and this is made out of
fossil fuels.
Fossil fuels, exactly. So all these things come together and are also contradictory, and is something strange happening, but while you had to do this, this working with trash or plastic, something occurred to you, something happened because you said about each piece being made. Can you maybe develop on that?
Yeah, I mean, so there's the 3 elements, and I'm thinking about this space and how you come in and you have this long view from here, and then from there you look back. So there's a sort of progression of it from. So this would be kind of the things that's maybe on the boardwalk or coming, and then this is kind of more like the beach, and then that has the color of the ocean. So it's sort of like the way that. It comes, human trash kind of migrates to the sea itself, and then the idea that you said, it's a fictional landscape or skyscape with the asteroids, because the sea and asteroids cannot be together, because and anyway, in English, when something comes through our atmosphere, it becomes a meteoroid. Mm. So it's kind of, something you can do in art is make these impossible situations be together.
Can you say something about your relationship to material, how you control it or not, who controls who? Because, with clay, for instance, things are happening.
Yeah, so I just feel like even with the plastic, I had to learn how to work with it. It's not so much of an idea of dominance over a material, it's more like getting to know it and trying to work with it, and then as I work with it, I can understand more what is possible. And with these asteroids, they're so large, and that I just allow for things to happen that maybe some other people working in ceramics would mm-hmm. think was a failure. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't, for me, I don't see it that way. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like it's evidence of the encounter of me with the work, rather than trying to make this, a perfect object or that has a certain aspect to it where it's like a fine ceramic. I'm really kind of stepping back and letting the clay teach me how to work with clay, and accepting it when it says I do it wrong. But that doesn't mean that it has to go in the trash. Yeah. Sometimes it does, but not every time.
But has it always, throughout your last 35 years of doing art, has it always been like this, or is that a more recent thing if you think back?
It was it was a progression towards, I think, from the cultures, and then, gaining a little more of an ability to make things and learning how to do that, till finally I came to doing 2001, which is this very precise object that used I did a lot of it, and it was a computer, with using the computer, and it's a huge object, and it really looks like a hologram, even though it's a real thing. But what I realized about it was that it was so perfect that I call it my perfect mistake, because it went too far into being so perfect, and so because it can't really exist as an object, because it's so fragile in a way that it's so perfect that any little scratch or one little thing, it's ruined.
Yeah.
And that was a huge lesson for me, in that I don't want to make things that are like that. That was something that I realized, like, that was not a path for me, and I think in some ways it allowed me to move more into ceramics, and with all of the change and kind of uncontrollability of that within certain.
So initially you studied philosophy. That's your bachelor degree, or that's how you started. And you're still somebody who reads a lot and is very interested in theory. So maybe you could say something about the last readings you have done that influenced you?
Yeah, so I didn't get it. I skipped out on my last year of my bachelor's degree and moved to art school. But so just to be clear, but I really like this I mean, there's a lot of concepts about the post-human. I particularly think that the way that Rosi Berdati thinks about the post-human is something that's really influenced me. I do believe that we're in the Anthropocene, and that is the new condition for humans to exist in, and it's something that I want to think about when I'm making my work. And
this is very much about exactly.
Yeah,
about that. No?
It is about that.
Yeah. Can you say something about style, not as something as it looks like, but as a form of approach?
Yes, I think it's been like fairly confusing, and thank you for not kind of adhering to that and going with the work and being interested. But I think that this insistence that style is the way something looks is something to question, and I think as an approach, like, I'm not saying that everyone can accept this, but for some people like yourself, it allows you to like move through my work, and you can see the connections with, and that's what I like about your selection upstairs, is that it lays out these connections that are not just about how something looks, but in some ways it's about flow upstairs. There's a lot of different kinds of forms, from the figurative to the abstract, but the connections that are drawn, that's the style that I hope people can understand, that the thinking and the interest in materiality in the work.
And also, I think the role of the visitor in an exhibition.
Yeah.
I think in all your works, although it doesn't look at all like this, but now that I think about it, I think they look like autonomous objects, but actually they need visitors to go around, as any sculpture needs it. And I think so there are these connections in attitude and approach, but not in the look. Yes, I look forward to have it installed and open it.
Me too. We have some work ahead of us, but it's going to be good.
Yeah.